Hi everybody, welcome you to Poznań Brno direct link series of lectures. And now we're gonna be talking a little bit about our studio of the name of KOGAA. My name is Tomasa Kozelsky'ego. I am one of the three co-founders. I am a design director and I established the studio in the year 2015 together with my colleagues Alexandrę Georgescu and Viktora Odstrčilíka. Well, since the time, we already managed to grow a little bit. So right now, our headcount is around 15 architects. What you can see in the picture is our Brno headquarter. We established also a little branch in Prague, which is not depicted here. But we are working a lot with the recycled materials. We are enjoying old buildings, and therefore you can see our studio, which is placed inside old Lyceum or old high school, which is now being refurbished. And the material which you see around us, all our furniture, is basically like collected from exhibitions we did in the past times, and we managed to save the material before it was about to be sent into junkyard. To speak about what is important for our studio, since we have this picture here, it's actually like the moments when we're coming all together. It's a moment of a pinups, which is nicely here depicted. It's a time when we're placing everything on the wall, so every single being in our office has to prepare the wrap up of the past week and actually show us what it's been working on, or what its team has been working on. It's an open forum just for us. It's a day when we're not like having meetings with the clients, but we're giving the possibility to each of our architect, junior, even interns, like having the chance to speak, to ask, to have an opinion on the projects. And we are trying to manage in the way that all of this information, if they are valuable, are collected and placed in the further design processes. Like that, we are able to actually conceive ideas for a bigger projects. We don't have limited scale that we are working on, neither the typology. And so I would say we have quite a various base of things what we are doing. I choose randomly here a project of Circo Aéreo presented in 2019 in Logroño in Spain. It's a project of like a urban intervention where we were actually placing this kind of inflatable ring, almost hovering above empty parking lot in this kind of space in between two buildings. The parking lot was kind of shabby area. It was a place where you store your car if you don't want to use it for another few months. It was a place where you park your garbage bin. It was like very excluded location, and we were basically lucky to be given the opportunity to kind of like um, um, reanimate the space of the city. And we were thinking that we have a space which is like fully concrete, full heavy materials. How you can reanimate it, right? It's Spain during the summer. You have their temperatures beyond imaginations. You cannot bring the trees. The trees are gonna die. Who's gonna take care of them? You cannot build expensive structures to shade the space. So what is a possibility? What you can build quickly? What can bring you good shading opportunity? And we came with the idea of air balloon, which we actually turn into this rink, which creates this almost sanctuary space in the middle of the square, shades it and protects it against the sun. And we place it on this wooden structure and allow people to sit around during moments when this space is being used for a certain type of activities, as music, as lectures, as just some show. So, for example, this is one of the things we're doing, like intervening in a public space. Or, on the other hand, we are working also with these big builders or building companies as developers or investment companies. This is a restoration topic. we took all the retail space, all the retail object, which was beyond its design qualities, and we were asked to actually find a new form to reorient a little bit the way this object communicates with the people, and mostly how it represents itself towards a very complicated traffic solution in nearby. Um, I'm just presenting these projects once to show you what kind of scale we're working with, but also both of them are having, in a certain sense, a topic that is the most important for us, and this is adaptive reuse. Adaptive reuse is basically a certain way of conversion. Um, we are speaking about conversion of infrastructures, since we are not focusing purely on the buildings, as you saw in the first project that I was showing you. We are basically trying to work with adaptive reuse on the scale of cities, on the scale of rural scape, on the scale of interiors, and everything in between. We believe that there are always values hidden in already built environment, and these kind of values are unique. Therefore, if you demolish a building to build a new one, you are losing something that might not be possible in the future, because the law is changing, because the environment around is changing. And we always understand that in each building might be something a little bit specific, and it's just important to dig for it. The adaptive reuse became important for us since our studio was established in the city, famous for its textile production. Brno has three different rivers. All those rivers were one of the most crucial resources for these huge factories. And till nowadays, there is like still remaining a plenty of buildings and complexes which are related with this history of production. What you can see at the picture is actually a historical drawing of one of those factories which was recently demolished, and instead of this complex was built there a new office hub. And this is a thing that I would say in a certain sense is painful. Is painful from the point of view that we see a municipal tendencies to prevent, municipal tendencies to criticize these steps, but municipal incompetence in the way to protect this historical heritage against these demolitions. And this is a little bit an issue floating through all the Central Europe, as far as we know. And therefore, we decided to actually focus on it and try to find the solutions how to communicate this topic to, if not to the municipalities, then at least to the developers and investors. So today I would like to introduce you to three of our projects. Each of them is adaptive reuse. They are two industrial buildings, one educational building. All of them were abandoned. They were not anymore used for the function they were initially designed for, and we were given the opportunity somehow to activate them. So the first one is a building, one of 7 buildings which were serving as a distillery in the city center of Brno. It was historically established before the 18th century. It was serving initially as a small brewery next to the monastery of Brno, which was the only institution allowed in the times to brew a beer. But later on, they moved the production of a beer into different buildings, and this building was bought by a Jewish family, which they connected with another buildings of theirs where they were producing jams, and they established the production of distillates. And most of these buildings are now demolished. They were basically taken by the nature, because since those times already quite some period passed around. And this building was just before demolition, and we somehow managed to convince the owners of the building to stop the demolition process and to rent it for us for some, let's say, ridiculous basic rent. When at the time when we were starting with the building, it was a building without any infrastructures, no heating, no water, no electricity, basically not even windows. The building was heavily leaked, so in a certain sense, I would like to say this was quite an extreme scenario. The second project is ex-Faculty of Applied Arts. After the Faculty of Applied Arts was moved into a new building, into more appropriate building, there was in the hands of the University of Technology of Brno remaining these kind of like two buildings connected together. It's also in the city center, but it used to be always an educational space. It was established in 1920, or the building was built in 1927, I think. It was working as a Mensa for the German high school, and later on it was transformed into a building of the faculties. And we were given the opportunity to change this space into a new creative hub, supporting creative industry, which is on the rise these days. And the South Moravian Innovation Center, which is basically the regional innovation center, decided to actually support this creative industry and create for the support actually a hub that can accommodate the young creatives, and it can provide them with the spaces for lecturing, for presenting, for markets, for whatever you can relate together with this creative industry. And the last building is a historical storage space, basically part of industrial complex next to one of the rivers in Brno, and we were transforming this one into a residential project. So we were creating these kind of like a loft spaces, and since we were in quite a complicated situation in terms of the municipal land zone plan, we had to combine this project, this function, together with spaces of civic equipment, as it's being called in Czech Republic, which means that it's not only flats, but you provide there, for example, multifunctional space. So this is the first one. The distillery. Here you can see already like the building basically after its refurbishment. The biggest advantage of the building was basically its yard. It is inside of the interior of a block, but it has such a small yard that you cannot park a car there. Basically you can park one car there, but since the fact the owners decided actually not to use it as a parking place, which is the most common thing what you do with the yards, and that was also why they were not like continuing further with the demolishing of the building and building further, because it didn't bring them any sense, and they would be not permitted, since they would not be able to provide by the Czech law enough parking spaces. And thanks to that, we were given the opportunity to start playing with this building, which was very complicated in the sense that it was historically used just for production. And now we couldn't turn it into offices, we couldn't turn it into housing, we couldn't turn it into a place for gathering of people, since all of these spaces were not fitting the demands on hygiene, the demands on illumination, the demands on the clearance of the ceiling, on the demands on the fire escapes. And so we had to also create a little bit different rules and different way how to represent the norm and legal description of this function. And we actually really managed to open the spaces, combine some of them. We, for example, combined 2 floors to create one higher space, and turn them into spaces which we call the multifunctional unit, that was allowing us to use it partly as an office and partly use it as, let's say, a public venue. Here we can see like some of the pictures of the building after its refurbishment. On the left side, we are having our co-work space, which was divided with this kind of wooden structure on 2 floors. It was a huge space where used to stand 2 tanks filled with the produced alcohol, I guess. And we divided on the height. Upstairs were like a little workspaces. Downstairs we put a meeting room, and we created this kind of common table where people were just sitting having a coffee and like actually seeing what's happening upstairs. On the right picture you can see a place where we used to have our office when we were starting. This was our like first architectural transformation. It's a bit sketchy because it was built by us. It was our first bigger experience with a building of such a scale. We were trying really to preserve a lot of existing qualities. Therefore, you can see the complicated metal window, which we actually refurbished with a new multi-layered glazing, but still we found out that each of this kind of unit of the grid was unique and diagonal. So each of the little glass pieces had to be measured separately, cut separately, glued separately. Very complicated in every sense. But we spent in this space basically 5 years. And since you are like so close with your environment, you are like changing it step by step, and you're always aware of the further step. And this process of like this continuous growth and continuous improvement, where you're starting with one space, then you take another space and you improve it, and then you take another space, we call the Social Reactor. A place that is like having a vision of how it should be transformed, but it's kind of waiting in the time, and it works with the most important essence of every building, and this is the community. This is the people using the space. And we did a lot. We were like waiting with this kind of empty building, and we start dressing our friends and our community of creatives within the city to tell us what they would like to have there, if they would like to come and actually try to run their little business. And it was working. It was actually step by step happening as this kind of like a plug-in elements. It was like you have a new phone and you're just like downloading the new apps, and the phone is becoming more personalized and more responsive towards what you need. And the same happened with the distillery. In the beginning it was just a tendency of young creatives, and in 3 years it was a very essential central hub in the area, and it was causing the change in the environment, affecting the surrounding streets to become the place to go. The second project is Kunst, the Creative Center for the Regional Innovation Center. As I said, it used to be a Faculty of Applied Arts. I would say the artists were applying the art everywhere they could. The building was quite specific in the sense like some of the spaces were really heavily destroyed. In some places we found like unbelievable charms, and we were standing in front of this decision making, how to renew something that is lacking a quality infrastructure. Our electricity in this building was totally useless, and we couldn't get permission to actually use it. So we had to change all the electricity. We had to play a lot with sewage. And on the other hand, you are willing to really kind of keep and represent the charm that was created there during the decades of artists studying in here. And that was quite a challenge, but eventually we managed to keep, I would say, less than we wanted, but on the other hand, we managed to find so many other levels and layers of the building that we were able to disclose. And we were also able to imply here the process of the social reactor. So we were kind of implicating the possibility of using the space and the building step by step, and therefore much longer before it was actually fully opened, it became a space where, for example, Brno Design Days, local festival of design, was happening. And it was also a moment when we introduced, or where we were allowed to introduce, the importance of recycling of material within the building industry. So what you can see here in these pictures on the left, you of course see people sitting and enjoying a lecture, but on the right side you see the main expo tables, which are done from all the disused styrofoam, and this was the main topic of all the event, which later on became essential for the further refurbishment of the space. Here you can see already like the finished stage. On the left side you see absolutely fantastic studio of Kvítka v bytě, which means actually flowers in the flat. It's two girls running this little shop, selling plants, writing books about it, making the pottery. They are really heart of this project. It's really essential, absolutely fantastic to actually see what they do and what they can do around themselves. And on the right side you see a space that we were actually dedicating to the creatives to be able to represent what they are doing to the wide public. It's a space that is actually related with the street. On the right side you can see big windows which are leading directly to the street, so whoever is passing around sees inside, can see all the exhibitions, can see lectures, can see whatever activity the building is containing. And what you see on the left side, it's quite interesting a moment. This used to be a facade, but later on the building was extended. So this interior space was once a main street, but now it became like this kind of a central space for artists to represent the craft and the art that they are producing. So this was another moment when we were like transforming the disused building into something totally new. And the last one I would like to introduce is a data district. It's as we spoke before, as I mentioned before, it used to be a storage space which we were transforming into residential loft housing combined with some polyfunctional spaces. What was very important element of the building is mostly its green roof, which you don't see that much here in this picture, but if you focus on it, you might notice that the top part of the roof is actually a little bit thicker than it should be. It's because we're extending the roof itself to be able to put there massive construction able to hold and withstand the weight of intensive greenery. That means like basically we create a garden which nowadays also have a tree on it. This is a big issue because these type of roof gardens are very expensive. They are very difficult to maintain, and most of the investors or developers are actually using these pictures just in the visualizations, but later on when they found out all the complexity of this project, they stepped down. But here, in case of this project, we had no other chance than apply it. It's because of the river that you see right in front of it. The object is actually standing in something that we call the flooding zone, and we were not allowed to take the rainwater which is like falling on the building. We were not allowed to send it into the river. And we also didn't have a sufficient sewage where we could send the rainwater. It was like just too narrow, and its refurbishing would be very, very expensive and very, very complicated. Therefore, the last known option was basically to create like a really retention working green roof that is able to slow down the pass of the rainwater even by few days. And so we created what you can see here on the right side. It's like really thick and really proper base, let's say a landscape, which is now being transformed partially for this kind of food garden and partially a little bit as a park or a meadow. You can very easily access the rooftop and it's accessible for all the tenants living in the building. The building was also produced by a Baugruppe, which is quite interesting way. It was not done by a developer. It was basically an association of the future owners of the units. They put together this kind of like a, let's say, a legal body. They were allowed to take a loan for actually building this building, and later on they really managed to finish it up, get the flats basically for half of the price of square meter of the surrounding, and I would say even in much higher quality. And that's basically it. I thank you for your time. I hope that I managed to give you something from our portfolio. As I said, we really believe and we really like to work with the topic of adaptive reuse. And yeah, if you want to contact us for a collaboration, for academic purposes, or just to let us know that you are in Brno and come to visit our office, we're going to be very happy. So let us know through our webpage, kogaa.eu. Thank you.